it. And then you get to the end of the meeting, and all of a sudden, everybody on the Zoom gets a little quiet, or in the conference room, everybody gets a little quiet. And then all of a sudden it goes, well...
Hello and welcome to the Rose and Rockstar from the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast and the Marketing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rock star, but I am a CMO. In a moment, I'll join my chum, author, marketing strategy expert and chief troublemaker at 7th Bear, Robert Rose, in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, where he recommends one of his fabulous cocktails and I pick his brains on a marketing topic that is top of mind for me. A few weeks ago, in one of his posts for the Content Marketing Institute, Robert suggested that saying no was a marketer's hidden superpower. But that sounds easier said than done to me, so I thought I'd pick his brains on that. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
Raise the rudder! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much, mate. And how are you?
I'm doing well. I am looking forward to the weekend. And by the way, we have a beautiful weekend cocktail here for us to try. We're going classic. I'm celebrating New York, with a classic Manhattan. I had a hankering for a Manhattan, and so we're going to make classic Manhattans tonight. And so that's, of course, starts with 2 fluid ounces of rye whiskey. Start with a good rye. I always like my Manhattans with a good rye, a little bit of sweet, just a tiny little smidgen of sweet vermouth, a little bitters, of course, and then shake all that up into a shaker. And then pour it into your glass. I like it without ice. Actually, I like my Manhattan sort of in a martini glass kind of thing with a couple of maraschino cherries in there. Nice. But you do you. If you want ice in it, that's fine. But or a big rock sometimes some people will put in it. But I like it served chilled in a martini glass.
Nice. So would you shake it with ice in the shaker?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that's right. You get it nice and chilled, just like you would, and all that stuff. Put it into the martini glass. Put a couple of maraschino cherries in there, and you're off and running.
Nice. And this week I've remembered the new format of the program of the podcast. So I'm going to ask you a question. And a few weeks ago, I was inspired by something you wrote, and I've shared this actually on LinkedIn. But in the Content Marketing Institute's newsletter, which I think you write, is it every week, every month?
Every week, yeah. If you can believe that, yeah.
And you had a really nice piece in there. I think it's your letter, isn't it, in there? And it was entitled "Hidden Superpower Unlocked: Saying No." which, as I say, I shared it on LinkedIn. It got a little bit of love. But it really resonated with me as often the conversations we have on the podcast here is we're always talking about doing new things. And very rarely we talk about what we can stop. So why did you describe saying no as a superpower?
Well, so big topic, saying no.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We are in a world right now, marketing and B2C and B2B go together here, but maybe even more importantly in B2B, we're in a world right now that we have spent the last, let's call it 10 years, basically moving fast and breaking things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we've moved fast and we've broken a lot of things, and now we spend a lot of time fixing broken things.
Mm-hmm.
And fixing those broken things comes in the guise of we call them new projects, but they're not new projects. Every year, right, in January, we get asked the same question 100 different ways, right? What new projects are you going to start this year? And the right question, what I find, is that in many ways, because we're so busy doing all of these sort of mindless things that just have institutional momentum, is asking ourselves, what will we stop doing? Right? What are we gonna stop doing now, this year, this quarter, and trying to let go of the past, so that we might actually have room to do new things in the future. So for example, there's so often what happens is I will get into a room with a marketing team, and we talk about doing some new, cool, innovative thing, right? That everybody wants to do. The C-level wants to do it. The marketing team wants to. Everybody wants to do it.
Yeah.
And we whiteboard it out, and we spend the time doing it, and it's great, and everybody's happy, and so much fun, and everybody's excited about doing it. And then you get to the end of the meeting, and all of a sudden, everybody on the Zoom gets a little quiet, or in the conference room, everybody gets a little quiet, and then all of a sudden it goes, well, we still have to create all that new sales material for the sort of sprint that we have coming. Well, we still have to publish the weekly newsletter that no one reads and no one cares about, but we still have to do it. And well, we still need to maintain the customer resource site that everybody hates and has outdated content and nobody can actually keep updated, but it's got budget and it's got so-and-so's blessing in some other department, right? And we just can't say no. And so one of my favorite new things is, it's when people say, no is a full sentence. And it's such a great way to think about what we're doing now is sort of, instead of starting with the idea of everything has to be done, like we have to say yes to it. It's so often that you'll be seen as a troublemaker, or you'll be seen as an obstructionist, or you'll be seen as someone, if someone comes in and says, well, can you just do one more PDF, or can you do one more, we need a new hero image, we need a new thing, we need this new thing. And people go, well, the right way to answer that question, if you're in a marketing team, or if you're in a content team, the right way to answer that question is to say, yes, we can do it, but here are the implications, and we have to wait, or what, it's like, but no can be a full sentence, right? And that it's like, no, we're not going to do that. No, we are not going to do one more PDF file. No, we're not going to do yet another blog post about this stupid thing that nobody cares about. No, it is just no. And it's not about doing more today in modern marketing. It is about everything we can do. Can we do it better? And sometimes doing better begins with doing less. So that's the hidden superpower that I think we all need to explore. And by the way, I need to explore myself.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's so easy to get distracted in so many things that we need to be doing. And when I was sort of researching this in terms of, what makes a successful CMO in some of my writing, and a lot of it seems to be about focus. And in that note, actually, in the newsletter, you actually mentioned some of the big case studies that CMI use a lot of the time, like Cleveland Clinic, Nike, and stuff. And you talked about how what differentiates them and what makes them successful is this focus. And in order to have focus, you have to say no. Is that been your client experience?
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? I mean, so it happens so often I literally had this experience the other day. I was talking with a business owner, small business owner, and she wants to grow her business. So she is a small business owner in the sense that she's got maybe, 8 people who work for her.
Wow. Yeah.
And so what she wants to do is grow the business to such an extent that she, basically the business is built around her. She is the thought leader. She is she is the person who brings in the money and services the clients and all that. And then basically her 8 people are either, their support. There's some of them are strategic, like finance and stuff like that. But most of them are support for her consulting service, right?
Yeah.
And so she wants to grow the business in terms of, and she's considered basically a kind of a unicorn in her market, right? So she's doing very well. And she wants to grow the business to a certain extent to where she can get out of doing the day-to-day client work and sort of just become sort of the figurehead or the name on the door and do content and thought leadership and write books and stuff like that. So it's a wonderful personal goal of hers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you go, okay, how do you do that? Her thinking was, I will add services so that I can add people, consultants to my roster who can build in the sort of lower hanging fruit of the lower value consulting projects that I don't want to do. I know how to do them, but I don't want to do them. But I can bring in these consultants who can do that. That'll get the cash flow going so I can actually get out and do the business.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, okay, that's one way to go. And you think, okay, here's the marketing implications to that, right? We're gonna have to, market all these low value services in order to basically, get you so busy that you have to actually have the business case of hiring a new consultant or two to take that over, and so that you can move on, right? So in other words, in the short term, we need to make your life miserable of stuff you don't want to do in order to get you out of doing that stuff, et cetera.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, that's what we've been doing, right? And so they've got this big, broad marketing campaign, and I was like, why not double down on the thing that you're a unicorn in and really market that? Double down on where you want to go, like where your marketing is going, not where you are today and how many cases you have to handle. And then when somebody comes in, the new consultant, you teach them how to be you.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is delegating you to this new consultant and teaching them how to be, unicorn number 3.
Yeah.
And basically then you can build the business that way. It will take longer to do that, but it will make you and literally so say no, basically saying no to all this other stuff to get focused. And it was palpable. The look on her face was like the sigh of relief that she didn't have to do all that other stuff that that actually she had permission to say no. Was and that's such a big part of it, is giving ourselves the permission to say no because we want to focus in and do one thing great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And but that's interesting as well, because what she's saying no to is such a well-trodden path for growing agents. I mean, big agencies do the same thing, isn't it? They lead with a particular piece of talent, and then as soon as the client signs, they swap them in for a junior, and that's that's where they make their margin. That's why they're basically charging for the premium person, but actually it's the junior that's doing all the work. So what I'm driving to here is, I think sometimes people like us, when we say things, it's very easy to say the things. How do you actually, if you're a B2B marketer and you're getting this deluge of requests, and they're expecting you to be a short order cook and all the things we talk about, and also you're feeling slightly sensitive about your position, you don't feel that confident because you're in marketing, and we've all got imposter syndrome. How do you actually go about the business of saying no? What's your advice on that?
Selling the ability to say no?
Yeah, how do you actually go about saying no? Because it's going to make you very uncomfortable.
Indeed. Well, you have to sort of separate So first of all, there's a spectrum here, right? Where we need
Yeah.
what are we actually saying no to, right?
Yes.
Because just saying no is like that can be just as bad as saying yes to everything, right? So you don't just willy-nilly wake up and go no. And so there is a thoughtfulness to this. But the thoughtfulness to it is to have an honest look, not through, one of my favorite old sayings is let's fix the problem, not the blame. And so we often get into a situation where the team, especially in larger organizations, where the team has been moving forward on a particular thing that everybody knows isn't working great.
Yeah.
But it continues to exist because it has the institutional momentum or it has the favor of a particular executive, et cetera. And nobody wants to be the one person to stand up and go, this is a stupid thing we're doing and we should stop doing it.
Yeah.
And in many ways, and so there's so much culture built into that. That's where the spectrum comes in. It's like, okay, well, that's the hardest part of this, right? Is how do you change the culture into one where you can come together as a team and collaborate, and not just collaborate in a way that adds, but collaborate in a way that balances. And that requires you to sort of have a hard look at the things that we're doing, the activities that we do every single day. Every day, we all have activities that we do. And those activities, and go, are they the best use of our team's time, of our time, of the company's time and money and resources and all that stuff? And so you have to have that hard conversation. For example, this last year, I spent a year and a half, 2 years doing the news for Content Marketing Institute. Along with my weekly article, I would do a little news item a video where I would cover the news, right? Cover the news in marketing. And I got to the end of last year and we looked at the numbers. Generally fine, right? I mean, the average sort of like, no, it wasn't killing it and it wasn't failing either.
Yeah.
But because it was such a time suck, and it's like, okay, well, if this is not killing it, there's no reason to continue. Let's say no to this. Like let's say no to this so that we can free up time to do something and take the risk of losing that average performer for something that might be better, and it might not. That's the point, right? So it's being willing to kill something that's an average performer simply because it's so much, and it's not an ROI thing. It's not. It's literally, the analysis doesn't have to be that deep. It's just literally like, do we want to be average at this? And I found that I was average at delivering the news, and so it was like, okay, I don't want to be average on that. I want to excel. I would spend my time working on something that's going to excel rather than be average. So say no.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, isn't it? I mean, there's so much in what you've just described there. So one of those helpful ways to say no is to understand what your team are good at, and then understand also what it is that's performing well by whatever metric you measure it by. But one of the things I was sitting thinking about while you were talking, because both of us have had in-house experience and also client-side being an agency-side experience and providing services. I wonder if this actually makes a case for, if you run a marketing team in-house, you should think a little bit like an agency, because if an organization came to you and said, I'd like you to do A, B, C, and D, but I've got budget for A and B, you'd say, well, which of these do you not want to do? You're then having a conversation about saying no, aren't you, in the SOW? So I wonder if there's a case here that we need to think like that as B2B marketing leaders, which is that we're an agency inside. We can only do so many things. What do you want us to stop doing in order to do those things? Does that make sense?
It does. It makes total sense. And that's a hard conversation to have, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's easy for us to sit here and say, but it's a harder conversation for a team to go to their bosses and say, hey, you want us to do all this stuff. What should we stop doing, right?
Yeah.
And so, ironically, what I find is that the way is to not have that conversation when someone asks if you can do more. Right. Ironically, the time to have that conversation is when you're handling everything and you want to build in ceiling to your bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
In other words, there's not something you're not making a negotiation around a particular project. In other words, yes, I know you want to do this new project, but basically we're going to have to say no to something else in order to handle it.
Yeah.
That puts you in immediate negotiation perspective, right?
Yeah, true.
And instead, before that ever happens, before that new thing happens, once you're handling everything and you've got everything sort of cooking, now is the time to go, great. Now what should we stop doing? Like, what should we stop doing to build in so that we're not 100% busy with our activities all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, and that gets to the point, which I'll reiterate, which is it's not always an ROI question, right?
Yeah.
In other words, it's because if you look at the thing that you want to say no to, it might actually be moderately, a moderate return on your investment. And so you're loath to kill anything that's in the black, right?
Yeah.
And so, so that's the real, that's the real focus, is that it's also like, I'll give you another example. Like in one of the things that I've been talking about with smaller business owners, mid-sized business owners that are growing their marketing, is to say to them, what don't you want to do? Because I can come back and make all these recommendations about you should be doing paid social, and you should be doing organic, and you should be doing more on your LinkedIn page, and you should be doing more on your, your thought leadership, and you should be, I can give you all of these activities that you should do more of.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to do them, then you're not going to do them. And therefore it's just the same as saying no, but basically then I'm not giving you a valuable piece of advice. So I need to understand, when I pressure test this new idea with you, do you feel like doing it? Because if you don't feel like doing it, that's just as good a reason to not do it than is, and I can make a case and I can say why you should do it. And I can tell you all these things. But if the institution or the organization doesn't want to do it, that's a whole other equation. You go, okay, great. You're not going to do it. There are implications to making that decision, of course, but that's the key, is that you don't want to do it. So don't do it.
That's interesting. And there's so many different aspects to this saying no business. I didn't realize what a big topic it would be. So that's fascinating. Now, if people are looking for content to which they will almost certainly say yes to, where might they find that?
Well, they'll find it on our little website, which is seventhbear.com, which is filled with things that we want to do.
It's splendid. And when they spin the dial on the interwebs and they want to say yes to you, where are they going to find you?
They can find us. They can find my little nonsense on a podcast called This Old Marketing, which would be lovely if anybody's not following that, to go follow that. And you can hear more of my nonsense with my pal Joe on that podcast. And then, of course, on LinkedIn, I'm talking about all this kind of stuff on LinkedIn.
Splendid. And would you say no to coming into the bar next week?
Of course, I'm back. I'm always back. We're making magic here, my friend.
So that's a wrap on our visit to the Rose and Rockstar this week. Thank you for listening. What do you think? Will you be saying more no? It's uncomfortable, but I think I will explore this art of saying no a little bit more. Something I'd like you to say yes to is to take a look at the show notes at rockstarcmo.com for links to me and Robert, all the things we discuss, plus our blog, newsletter, and a little bit about my agency, Rockstar CMO. Or connect or follow us on LinkedIn. Just search for Rockstar CMO. You'll find us. Just mention you're a listener. Coming up this week on Rockstar CMO FM Marketing Studio, Jeff and I will be discussing the awareness phase of our amped buyer's journey model. I hope you join us for that. In the meantime, remember, as Dewey Finn said in the School of Rock, you can't just say it, man. You got to feel it in your blood and guts if you want to rock.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.